Hey everybody out there, welcome to the very first episode of FTE. I am your host, Brian Latimer. Welcome to this podcast vlog thing that I'm starting right now because in my time in education, because I've taught at the college level for well over a decade now, I don't know if I've just overlooked them or what, but I'm not seeing a whole lot in terms of resources for us professors, right? Like there's all sorts of stuff for students and whatnot, but I often wonder like really what is out there to help us, not just professionally, but for our own mental health as educators, because there's just so much going on depending on what you do, right? You know, are you at a publisher parish? Are you at a Slack? Like, are you an adjunct? You know, there's so many things that entail each of those positions, and there's just a lot of things happening that can stress us out. And so I want this to be a place where we can have a dialogue, where we can discuss issues and share ideas. I want this to be a pretty positive place that helps all of us, right? And so listen to what I have to say if you want. If you don't, leave. I don't care. But if you feel like the need to contribute, which I hope for, just leave some comments below. It'll be really good for us to, help increase the dialogue. And so today I want to focus on one thing. It's something that is, by and large, especially if you're at a Slack nowadays, a big thing that is plaguing students. It is student engagement. Heard that word when I was younger, and when I was a newly minted PhD, but here in the last 5 years, it has exploded. Student engagement is down. Students don't want to do this. Students don't want to do that. Students don't care, right? And as I'm sitting in faculty meetings and I'm looking at forums online, this is what I see a lot of. And so this is something that I don't want to say is a huge problem in my own classroom. Like it doesn't really matter. You're going to have students, no matter what, who just don't care. That's just going to happen. It's something that I've just learned not to take personally. Kind of like what happens when reviewer 2 writes anything back to me. I don't take the stuff personally. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts me like, why aren't you paying attention to me? Or why would you say that about my work, right? But I've learned that some people are like that. And so I'm not going to harp on those people. I'll let them do what they want and, chips fall where they may when it comes to their grades. But by and large, I hear all this talk about student engagement and how students they don't want to read the textbooks. They don't want to talk in class. They don't want to do assignments, and when it comes to any assignments that they do, they're practically helpless, right? I see that a lot. And so let's break that down and really think about this in terms of the student versus us. And I'm not pitting them against us like this isn't Mortal Kombat or anything like that, but really think about what actually happens in our classrooms that these feelings occur, right? So let's start with the biggest one that has plagued students since undergrad became a really affordable thing with the GI Bill and whatnot, right? Reading the textbook. Students don't read the textbook. They don't care. They don't even bother, right? My question for that is, what did you do when you were 19 or 20 or whenever you were an undergrad? See, I was a non-traditional student. I took 4 years in the military so I didn't have to pay for college. And I remember my very first semester, I had made up in my mind, whatever the professor says, whatever they tell me I have to do, I'm going to go do it. And because I need to pass. Because I sacrificed 4 years of my life to not have to pay for this. So whatever they say goes, I'm doing it, right? So I learned after that first semester that professors have their various techniques, their various methods in their lecturing. you know? And as you pick up on that, you then determine, like, all right, how much commitment to this class do I really need to have? And even though it might not appear that way to us, students still do that. So we have to think about, how is it that we use the materials that we discuss in our own classrooms? For example, right? You say, yes, read this chapter because next time we're going to discuss it, right? Well, when you have that discussion, what exactly is going on? Is it just regurgitation? Are you only talking about the boldface words? Or are you deep diving into things and really getting into the nooks and crannies of the chapter and not talking about the overall general themes? Because if it's just the overall general themes, then yes, it's regurgitation. And so why would they read it if they know that that's all you're going to do? And that goes into another part about the lectures themselves, right? Is the lecture actually a conversation, or is it just you talking down to them? And I'm not saying that's what you do, but some people have that tendency to do that, where there is no room for discussion. And I get it. You know, we think the work that we do is important. I would like to think that the work that I've done is important, but I know it's not the end all be all. It's good to like 6 other people out there who have read my work. Woo! I'm happy. But these kids, they're not, unless you are an R1 institution, a prestigious R1 institution, they're not here for you. And so again, you have to remember that don't take any of this stuff personally. The moment you get past that, it's going to be a whole lot easier for you, right? Because I see a whole lot of people who are like, I can't get to these kids, and I don't think they're the ones that care. But you know, if I saw a suggestion that was really good, if you just focus on the ones who care, you know, they're taking the notes, they're doing the things, teach for them. Don't worry about the rest. Chips will fall where they may, and if they end up seeing you again the next semester, well, that's on them. It's just the way that it is, right? But when it comes to those lectures, I remember I took over for a business class. And business is not my thing, but they wanted somebody who was a good writer, who wrote research stuff, which I do. And it was basically the class that was the predecessor to their capstone. In their capstone class, they have to write a full-on research paper about something business related, right? And so when I took over the class, I got the old professor's materials, and they used the textbook supplied PowerPoints. Now, if there's anything wrong with that, but I do have to say, if you've got 93 slides in a chapter, what are we talking about? That's a lot. I don't know anybody who's going to be willing to handle that. And so what I ended up doing, because I looked at this stuff and I'm just like, no. I chopped it down. I whittled the whole thing down from 93, and I still think this is a little bit much, but it was better, down to 22 slides. And something else about this, and it reflects back to the idea of what we're doing with the textbook and such. What is on the slide, right? Is it just bullet points of stuff? You know, because if you know your material, all you need is a keyword and you can go, right? But if it's walls of text, I don't blame them to not read it. Because who wants that PowerPoint karaoke? I want a conversation. And so, and I think that's a bigger part here with us in general, right? We are dealing with a generation that primarily is looking to get the right answer. They have not had the education to look beyond just finding the right answer and thinking about things differently, you know. And then they get to us and it's like, we've never used this muscle before. What are you asking us to do? And so they only want that one answer. And so for us, we have to keep that in mind and figure out, like, all right, can we break these things down in ways that's going to be a little bit more attainable? And that right there, especially through conversation and dialogue, is going to do wonders for them. Because a lot of them just look at us as robotic, draconian automatons. Like, we are here to educate you. And that's it. Like, they don't see us as human beings. Kind of like when you were a little kid and you saw your school teacher in the grocery store. It's like, what are you doing here? I thought you lived at the school, right? They think the same of us. Like, we live at the university and we don't leave. We don't have a life beyond these four walls in this classroom or this lab. No, we do. And I think that's part of the issue. We don't show them that we're human. Because if you do that and they start to realize, oh, they have an investment in us. They want to have dialogue, right? Like, one of the things that I do with my students before class even starts, and if I find out, my weakness is if I find out what their sports team is, whoever it is, I'm going to make fun of that sports team. I talk trash on every sports team. Even if it's a sports team I like, I don't care. Because I'm showing that I have some invested interest in their interests. And so they come more apt to be open with me and have discussion because they're not afraid to then have that conversation. And speaking of fear, that is another aspect about all of this that they worry about. Nobody wants to appear stupid. None of us do anyway. Right? We all remember grad school and sitting in a seminar class and we had to read some dense book and then sit there in a seminar class for 2.5 hours praying somebody makes sense of what we just read so that we can at least sound somewhat competent, like we're supposed to be here and sound like we're scholars. Yeah, like that fear that we had in grad school, they still have it in undergrad. And so, do your best to make them feel like, hey, this place is open dialogue. If you think you got a good question or you might say it. Never make them feel like they're out here, and you're just gonna leave them out to dry if they get the answer wrong. It's like, like anytime anybody gives me a wrong answer, I'm like, that's a good thought. I like that train of thought, but it's unfortunately not what we're looking for. I'm trying to pad them so it's not like, oh, what are you, stupid? No. You want them to feel that it's okay to make a mistake in your classroom. That's what we should be doing. And because, again, if anything when it comes to our students, especially related to our own health, realize that, it's not that they're ignoring us or attacking us by not engaging, right? It is something that's kind of hard to overcome because they've received an education in such a way where they're not asked to think in a critical way. It's like, find the best answer, find the correct answer, whatever that is, do it, right? Because everything has to be instant now. The idea to actually mull over an idea and get something accomplished isn't there. And so we have to think about ways in which we can invite that and have them think that, I can learn a thing from this. And, this isn't as horrible as it actually is. So that's where I feel that we as educators should be. We can't change the world overnight. We can come up with policies and do things and try to deal with engagement in a series of different ways. I myself, like I say, I use bad stand-up all the time. I try to have those conversations with students to show that I'm human. Because I feel like that actually opens up things. Now, I know it might be a lot harder in a large lecture class, but, having some form of personality, having some sense of dialogue with them is going to go a long way. So that's what I have here for our first episode of FTE. I don't know if any of this made sense. I thought it had some cohesion, but it could be just senseless blathering. I don't know. But hopefully it helps you. And if you like what you hear, let me know. Say something in the comments below, whether we got a good idea or a bad idea. I'm up for it. I want to have these conversations because I don't like the fact that we as professors are kind of out here struggling and not being able to reach these kids in a way that's productive. And I hope that, through all of my rambling and whatever dialogue we have together, we can be better at it. So, this is Brian Latimer, signing off from the very first episode of FTE. I'll see you next office hour.